Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome in. Welcome in. Tonight, we are going to be discussing magical protection or protection magic, right? Psychic self-defense, as the popular Dion Fortune title is called. We're going to be looking into the importance. I've got notes right here. We're going to be looking into the importance of protecting oneself, not only while doing magic, but while just out and about in everyday life, right? We're going to talk about some of the reasons why one would need to defend themselves in a magical sort of perspective. And then we'll go into some techniques that one can use to protect themselves. Oops, sorry. Let me put this on mute or vibrate or something. All right, there we go. And then we'll go ahead and we'll talk about some actual methodologies to protect oneself, right? Not really specifics, more ideas that you can adapt to your own practice. I don't like really, unless we're talking about, a specific system or something like that, I tend not to like to get too specific with methodology. I like to leave it open to the practitioner, so that way the practitioner can update and change it as they see fit. So we're going to go ahead and get started this evening with our spiritual warfare, psychic self-defense, magical protection, whatever you want to call it, discussion, talk. I don't know what to call it. So first and foremost, let's talk about some of the reasons why one would need magical defense, right? Spiritual defense. And it's not just because of curses and hexes and people sending negative energy your way. It could just be from the ills and the trappings of life, right? Sometimes life just happens. Not everything has a magical or a spiritual reasoning behind it. Sometimes life just happens, and we may want to avoid, certain paths, right? Protection isn't always someone is attacking me, right? Although that's probably the most common thing that we would use it for. Oh, hey, what's up, Bloodhound? What's going on? How are you? How are you? Good evening. Welcome in. Hope you had a happy Memorial Day. We went boating. I'm not sure if you've seen the stories from earlier today. But yeah, we were out on the boat. Welcome in. Welcome in. Accidental energy vampires, parasitic beings, nightmares, etc. Yes. Evil eyes, etc. Yes, those are all very good and necessary reasons to utilize magical protection, psychic self-defense, things like that. But again, also just against the ills of the world, right? Not every car accident is caused by a curse that someone put on you, right? But you still would like to avoid car accidents, right? Setting oneself up as much as they can for a safe whatever, whether it's going out into the world doing mundane things, or whether it's getting on live streams and making content in the occult world that might upset people, and they try to send out negative energies to you. Both parties should be working with protection-based magic, right? So I guess we should start with probably the most common, which is the attack, right? People attacking you. People sending curses, people sending hexes, people sending hotfoots and jinxes and things like that out to you. It would be wise to preempt that sort of thing, right? A lot of practitioners seem to be reactive rather than proactive, and I don't understand that, right? It seems to be like a carryover from like Christianity, where you never pray for anything until you need it, right? Like you don't pray for healing until you're sick. But instead of waiting until you're sick, why not pray to prevent getting sick, right? Like why not pray to keep you healed? Like I don't understand the reactionary nature of a lot of these recommendations for protection, and even like reversal magic and stuff like that. It should be preemptive. You should be proactive with that sort of work. And you should be ready and prepared for, if, not saying someone will, but if someone does decide to fling negative energies at you, if someone does decide to, as Mario was saying earlier, put evil eye on you, or send nightmares to you, or hot foot you, or something along those lines, you want to be ready and prepared for that, because even if someone isn't intentionally attacking you, things like the evil eye don't need to be intentional, right? It's actually quite simple in its approach on how one can do the evil eye. A lot of people can do evil eye without even realizing that they're doing it. A lot of magical people can do, non-magical people can do the evil eye without really recognizing or understanding that that's exactly what they're doing. So it doesn't always have to be a targeted, conscious, I'm going into my magic circle to curse you type of a thing. It could simply be someone just not really liking you and having negative thoughts about you, and seeing you and projecting all of that into you, and that could cause issues. And you want to prevent that. So setting up shields, setting up wards, right, around yourself, around your home. If you have a business that you run, around your place of business. If you work, around your office or your workspace or your cubicle or whatever, right? Now, if you have a job where you don't really have that, like you're a server or, something along those lines, a warehouse worker or something, whatever, a mail delivery person, whatever, you don't have a specific location that you're, other than the main building that you're in, setting it around yourself or even around the building as a whole can be fruitful. Although, depending on how large the building is, like if you work at Amazon, I don't think you can, you might not have the opportunity to, reach all sides of the building. But setting up shields and wards around yourself and your home, at least, are good starting points, right? Your car, you can ward your car, even your pets, right? A good rule of thumb when you're warding your home is to ward any entry or exit point, right? Any entry or exit point. So that includes windows. Like, for example, in this back room here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 windows, and then the double French doors here that you can kind of see. This is the end of it right here. The double French doors here, which is, I guess, technically 2 giant windows with like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 window panes each, right? And then you've got the windows in the front of the house, and then you've got the front door. This is the back door, and the windows in each room or whatever, right? And then the fireplace, right? Those are all the entry and exit points, that energy that is, whether it's directed and targeted to you or not, could enter, I can't put this here, I guess I'll put it over here, can enter or exit your home, right? So warding all of those is paramount, right? Notice that, we'll use hoodoo as an example. Notice in hoodoo, right? When you're getting rid of negative energies, right? You're sweeping them out or something along those lines, right? Or you're doing a banishing. The rule of thumb is to open all the doors and windows, right? And that is to let all of that negative energy out. Well, if energy can go out that way, energy can come in that way, right? So it would be a good idea to ward all of the entry and exit points of your home. And depending on how big your home is or how unique, how custom your home might be, that might take some walking around the property, and maybe going into areas of the property that you might not have always don't always go into or don't like going into, right? If you have a basement, and your basement is and you have an older home, and so your basement has that outdoor exit that's like in the ground, you could like open the doors sideways or whatever. You'll want to ward that, right? You'll want to ward that little thing. If you live in a house and you have or I guess if you live in an apartment, you might have it too. I've never lived in an apartment, so I don't know. But your washer and dryer, your dryer, right? That hose that goes into the wall and then it goes outside. And then, that's where a lot of the heat and the dust and all that will go. All the extra lint and stuff gets thrown out of there. You might want to ward that, right? Any sort of exit and entry point that one can access your home, you want to ward. I just got my version of the GPM. I think you mean the PGM, the Greek Magical Papyri. Yes. Awesome. I hope you enjoy it. I recommend Stephen Skinner's Techniques of Greco-Egyptian Magic can really shed some light on that text, show you how to use it the proper way. Stephen Skinner's Techniques of Greco-Egyptian Magic. You can get it on Amazon for like $60, $65, whatever. You might get lucky if you go to like a secondhand bookstore if you live near one, or you can find one online, like thrift books or something like that. You might be able to find it for a little cheaper, but usually you'll have to pay full price for that kind of thing. But that's awesome. I hope you enjoy it. But yeah, so you want to shield and ward each area of your home, and the shields and each exit and entry point of your home. And shielding and warding doesn't have to be some long drawn out ritual. It can be a simple placing a witch bottle right near these areas. Now, most people, or I'm not gonna say most people. I'll say it this way: traditionally, when witch bottles were hung, well, I gave it away. They were hung, right? But that might not always be feasible, depending on, who like if you have roommates or you live with, your parents, or even your significant other might not be interested in it, or you might live with family, sister, brother, cousins, whatever, might not be into it. And you don't want, witch things just hanging around the house. And if you're someone like me who lives in a house with an abundance of windows, that's an abundance of witch bottles. It's going to be quite noticeable. Why does Asclepius recommend worshiping statues, but the definitions warn against it? I think you're misunderstanding the statue thing, but this stream isn't about Hermeticism. But I'll be happy to answer that if you want to DM me and set something up. We can discuss that in like a one-on-one or something. But I think that's a misunderstanding of the enlivening of the statues, the seating of spirits, not for a fetish issue, or not for a fetish purpose, but for a veneration and worship. But we can discuss that another time. But yes, where was I? I lost my train of thought. Witch bottles. The Egyptian practice of ensouling statues. Yes. Okay, yeah. I think that's a misunderstanding. But if you want to DM me, set something up, we can go deeper into that. But anyway, the witch bottles. They're traditionally hung. They don't have to be. If you don't live in a home conducive to that sort of thing, they don't have to be hung. They just have to be near, as close as possible. That's why hanging is the best, because you usually hang them directly in the center, or like right on the window. They'll hang in the window or the doorway, whatever. But if that's not possible, putting them near the doorway, like if it's possible under the window, like like if your couch is up against the window, slide your couch up just an inch or two, place the bottle behind it under the window. If you have room on the windowsill, put it on the sill. If you have curtains instead of blinds, right? It's easier to hide it behind curtains than it is blinds. Blinds might knock it over, blah, blah, You know, you can hide it behind curtains. There's ways, if you just want to get a little creative, that you can do these things without drawing attention to them. Right? So it doesn't have to be some sort of elaborate ritual. It can be something as simple as witch bottles. It can be something as simple as, you know, placing salt in each of these areas and blessing it. Right? It can be as elaborate or not as you want it, but it doesn't have to be this elaborate, drawn out, you know, protection right from, you know, the grimoire or something along those lines. It can be quite simple, and simple doesn't mean ineffective, right? And the same thing with warding yourself, with shielding yourself or shielding your pets, or like your car or something like that. It doesn't have to be this crazy, wild thing, right? Something that sounds quite new agey, but is actually quite effective. The 12D shield technique is pretty effective in, you know, keeping out basic attacks and basic negative energies and things like that. It's good for keeping a lot of that out. But also things like what is that? Damn, the Violet Shield. Jesus Christ, I don't know. I couldn't think of that. But even things like the Violet Shield, or the Shield of Michael, or the Chariot of Helios, right? These are all protective rites that grow in elaboration, but they certainly don't need to be. They can be quite simple. It doesn't have to be, you know, it doesn't have to be the Rite of Helios, right? It can be a simple 12D shield activation technique, which can assist in shielding and protecting oneself. And this can help with negative energies getting onto you. This can help with negative energies latching onto you, like from parasites. It's one thing if someone just flings something at you and then it just bounces off. It's another thing when something is persistent, right? Just like anything else in the world, as above, so below, right? If that's true, then, you know, most things in life corrode. You know, they degrade over time, especially when they're constantly being, I don't want to say attacked, but they're constantly being stressed, right? There's stress getting put on them. It constantly. Eventually, those defenses are going to weaken and weaken and weaken until it gets through. And so you want to prevent that sort of thing, and you can do that by weekly refreshers, I guess, of your shielding and your warding, right? It's not enough to just set it and forget it, right? It's not enough to just do it one time and you're good forever. You got to reinforce these things. You got to refresh them every so often. I recommend once a week, but however, you know, but that's up to you and your practice. And, you know, if you are getting attacked on the regular or have a lot of negative energy coming your way on the regular, you might need to do it more often. But someone like me only needs to do it once a week. I think most people can get away with once a week. You know, if you're a complete hermit, you never go outside, you never, you know, you're not even on the internet bothering anybody, like in video games, in the chat rooms or anything like that, you might be able to get away with like maybe once a month, but I highly recommend once a week to keep things up to par and up to snuff. But there was another point I wanted to make, and I think I forgot. It had to do with the shielding of oneself specifically. I don't know. I'll remember. But thoughts on Golden Dawn style rituals? I'm not really a fan of the Golden Dawn when it comes to ritual format. I like the Golden Dawn for their technique when it comes to like scrying and divination, astral projection, lucid dreaming, stuff like that. Outside of that, I'm not really. Oh, and their correspondence stuff is really helpful for beginners. But outside of that, I'm not really a fan of the Golden Dawn. All right. Let's see here. So we talked about shields and wards. Talked about protecting your home, place of business, work, your car, school. That that's just an extension of work, things like that. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So the breaking down of one's defenses, right? This is how psychic vampires, both conscious and unconscious. If you don't know anything about that, go way back to my I think my first 2 or 3 videos ever that I ever produced on TikTok were about psychic vampires. They're still available. We talk about the conscious and unconscious psychic vampire. Thank you, Jungle Juice, for that, for the heart puff. You can go back and watch those. Just scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I go into those pretty deep. But that's how psychic vampirism sort of works, unless you don't have any defenses, and then it can just get you. But psychic vampirism weakens your defenses, right? And it does it over time. It's not a one-time thing. I mean, unless you have weak defenses and the person who's attacking you is pretty powerful. Outside of that, it's not a one-time thing. It's a consistent knocking and knocking and knocking at your auric field, right? That's where psychic vampires attack, your auric field. Once they get through that, they then can latch on to your aura, and they can begin siphoning energy from you. Now, a lot of people know that, fine. The problem is, over time, that siphoning, assuming they are done and they, whether it's weeks, months, years, whatever, they eventually let go and they move on to someone else or whatever, it usually leaves holes in your auric field, right? There's usually, when they latch onto you and they break through your aura to get to your energy and they feed off of it, when they're done, and it's not a one-time thing. It's not a latch on for an hour and then I'm done. They usually latch on for weeks, months, if not years. And then when they finally let go, if they ever do let go, there could be punctures where they were feeding you from, or feeding off of you. I don't know. Whatever is the proper way to say that. There could be punctures. Those punctures can leak energy, right? That needs to be fixed. It should have been prevented in the first place, right? You should have had protocol in place to prevent that. But we're all human, right? Even if you did have protocol in place, there's always someone more powerful than you, someone who knows more than you, someone who is more effective than you, more efficient than you, and they may have gotten through, even if you had all the protections in place. Now your auric field is leaking out, and you need to fix it, and you don't know how to fix it, right? Well, what you'd want to do is you'd want to, I guess, plug those holes up, right? And for that, you'd want to do aura therapy, right? Which would get those holes plugged up, and then once those holes are plugged up, then you strengthen that auric field to create shields, right? And then from there you would reinforce that weekly, or however often you want. For me, it's just a weekly thing, in order to prevent any sort of thing from happening like that again, because you certainly don't want that. You don't want your energy centers, your aura leaking, because that can cause things like fatigue. If you notice that you're always tired and there's no real cause, you're not like smoking a lot, or you're not like drinking a lot, there's like no cause for like this fatigue, and you're into spiritual stuff, you might want to look at your auric field and make sure that there's no punctures. Okay. Let's see. Before we move into actual technique, let's talk about the different type of attacks that one can become affected by, that one could come under the influence of. So everyone's aware of curses, right? Hexes, right? These negative energies that are sent at you. Evil eye, right? But there's also jinxes, right? A jinx is a malefic working against someone. A hot foot, right? If you're into hoodoo, you should know what hot footing is. And even bindings, right? A binding is considered to be malefic, right? We in today's modern sense of binding, I really only see people talk about binding when it comes to like a problematic person in their life or the lives of like a loved one, right? Their friend is in an abusive relationship, or a boss is being a jerk to someone, or whatever, right? That's where you usually in this modern occult climate see the word binding, right? You really don't see it used in the context that it was originally used in, or even to just bind people trying to harm yourself, right? It's usually simply a deterrent or a removal sort of a ritual. But in this case, we're talking about someone binding you from doing magic or from succeeding, whatever, right? You want to be protected against those types of things. I've watched your lies before and thoroughly enjoyed the information. Okay, I think you mean lives, and thoroughly enjoyed the information, but I'm interested in your tea. I'm not sure what that means. You're interested in my tea? What does that mean? I'm sorry, Auntie Winnie. What does tea mean? Christians talk about binding spirits and things. Yes, but I'm not talking about in the Christian community. I'm talking about in the occult community. You hear people talking about binding, like a abusive boyfriend or something like that. I don't know what Christians talk about, but in the occult community, in the modern day occult community, bindings, you usually hear about that in the context of like, getting out of an abusive relationship or something like that. Sorry, lives. Yes, lives. Yes. Sorry. Interested in your thoughts on the movie Sinners. Sorry, Fighting Grandbaby. I thought Sinners was great. I watched it twice in theaters, obviously. It was a fantastic film. I think it was, for the most part, a pretty accurate representation of hoodoo. Of course, the supernatural elements, vampires coming and things of that nature. I doubt, and no offense to hoodoo or anything, I doubt, like, if vampires were real, I doubt, like, wearing blue or whatever is going to prevent them from getting to you. Well, she wore that because she thought it was a haint, and it wasn't a haint, so it was a vampire. So, but yeah, it was a very interesting film. I am a fan of Ryan Coogler. Not so much Michael B. At least not yet. Maybe he'll impress me eventually, but so far I've not been impressed by anything Michael B. has done. But Ryan Coogler is a really good director, and in this case, a really good writer. I mean, Fruitvale Station was good too, but I thought it was a good movie. I just tuned in and hate I missed your talks about protections. Oh, we're not done. We're probably like, I mean, we're towards the tail end. We're probably about 75% of the way done here. But don't worry, we're going to move, after we're done this, we'll probably move into, I don't know, maybe either magic circles or initiation or something. I've got a couple other notes here for lectures that we could do. Hey, any advice you can give someone to someone preparing for the Abramelin? Yeah, look for a more modern methodology. Don't go through with the 6 months on up to 18 months, depending on who you talk to. Abramelin, like the original Abramelin. I wouldn't go through that. Not in today's world. So that would be my suggestion. Find a modernized method that still, hits all the correct points. Everything it needs to hit. By modern, I don't mean, just go in your mind and visualize everything and just feel the emotion. I don't mean that. I don't mean some new age nonsense. But modern in the sense of you don't have to I mean, unless you have the money and the time and all that. If you've got a cabin in the woods, or you know someone with a cabin in the woods, and you can go out there for 6 months, you've got the money, you don't, or bills taken care of, or you got a spouse who makes enough money, blah blah blah. Then by all means go for it. But most of us don't have that, and so rather than trying to make something like that work, you should just find a modern method. That's what I would suggest. What do you think about the stories about the Annabelle doll and its spiritual effects? I was going to talk about that on a different stream where we go down the rabbit hole. Last week, I started doing the down the rabbit hole where we'll go on Twitter and I follow a bunch of conspiracy theorists. And they'll post a bunch of nonsense, and then you'll just go through the comments and just go down the rabbit hole. And that was going to be part of that, but I can answer that now. So the stories are absolute ridiculousness. It's a doll, right? And the doll in and of itself has no magical properties. Can spirits attach themselves to items? Yes, they can. But it's not just random items. Those items have to be conducive to holding a spirit. Now, could the Annabelle doll have an internal charge, meaning someone opened it up and put inside of it the necessary components to hold a spirit? Sure, they could have, but that would help marketing, right? Like that would be a great boost to one's marketing. Like, hey, not only are we just saying that this doll has a spirit in it, but here's how you can tell that there's a spirit in here because this, and that. I think that would add to the mystique and the allure of this Annabelle doll. Since they haven't said anything about there being an internal charge, it's best to assume that there is no internal charge. Therefore, it's just a Raggedy Ann doll that people are saying is haunted and has all of these, things attached to. Oh, the place down in New Orleans burned down. Oh, because Annabelle was 6 miles away, nearby. Blah blah blah. There's 50 Annabelle dolls running around here, right? I watch what's that podcast? Lights Out podcast. They have an Annabelle doll, right? I watch John Campea, who doesn't do any spiritual stuff. He's a movie reviewer. So a lot of times studios will send him props and stuff from the movies, right? He's got the main jacket that Jax Teller wore from Sons of Anarchy. He's got the chair of St. Peter from the Borgias. He's got all this stuff. He's got an Annabelle doll, right? And then the Warrens have an Annabelle doll. And now the Annabelle doll is in New Orleans. Come on. All these Annabelle dolls are haunted. Stop it. These are mass-produced dolls that have no internal charge. There's nothing magical, spiritual about these dolls. It's just for marketing, to sell the movie franchise, to, sell, I don't know, book ticket. I mean, I don't know. All I know is the movie. I don't follow the Warrens. I don't know if, they have descendants and if those descendants are cashing in with books and guest speaking fees and all this other stuff. But that's what I believe it is. I've not seen any compelling evidence that Annabelle is actually a haunted item. And again, spirits can attach themselves to items. That's not the argument. The argument is that the item doesn't have an internal charge. For example, my servitor, right, has an internal charge. My servitor is hollow. So it looks really cool on the outside, but the inside is, it's not empty anymore. There's stuff in there now, but originally it was made empty. And so that way you could put stuff in there. And there's a crystal in there, which is where the spirit would be held. And then there's items in there that would be conducive to the nature of that spirit to make it more comfortable, I guess you could say. That's not really the reason, but that's probably a reason that our modern minds can grasp easily without going into too much detail. And there would be items to anchor the spirit, so that way the spirit can't just leave, and all that good stuff. We don't see that with Annabelle. We don't see that at all. So I have no reason to believe that Annabelle is in these dolls. So any spirit named Annabelle is in these dolls. They're just dolls. So I hope that answers your question. Hi, I just purchased Baal Cadman 72 Demons of the Name, and I'm loving all the info. That's cool. I'm not familiar with Baal Cadman's work. I've heard the name, but I've never read any of his work, so I don't know anything about him. What's your opinion on real powers like telekinesis? There are lots of traditions that mention them. I'm not going to rule it out. I don't believe anybody in the West. That means Russia, Europe, North, South America. I don't think anyone in the West is doing anything like that. I think if anyone can do that sort of stuff, it's people who are disconnected from modern everything, right? Like they spend 12, 15, 20 hours a day in meditation. They don't have, cell phone signals and Wi-Fi signals crossing through their body, fucking everything up. So basically, the Buddhist monks, right? The guys over in Tibet, those are probably the only guys that are out here that could do something like that. I'm not going to completely rule it out, but I don't believe that anyone that we are in contact with is doing anything like that. I don't think anybody over here in the West is doing anything like that. Do spirits have ways of protecting themselves from humans or other spirits? Yes, that's a very good question. And yes, they do. Spirits can shield themselves and guard themselves just like we can. But of course, spirits are not limited to only that, right? We're pretty much limited to only shielding and warding, talismans, amulets, right? Like we are limited in our protection. At least here, right? They're not. The protection methods that they can use in their own realm, right? On the astral plane, they can also use here. Because they're not of here, right? So they're not necessarily bound by the same rules that we are, which is the biggest reason why we use them in our spiritual work, right? They're not bound to the same limitations that we are. So that's a very good question. Yes, spirits do have a way of protecting themselves. I know one of the best methods I found on the astral plane to protect oneself, and even when doing work, like work for other clients, is shapeshifting, right? Shapeshifting isn't real on the physical level, right? We can't physically shapeshift, but on the astral, it's as simple as breathing. It's not simple, but once you're good at astral projecting, then you can start learning how to do things in the astral. And it's a quite simple method of protection to shapeshift. And protection isn't always a fighting off of something. It could be a preventative measure, right? It could be an escapist measure. It doesn't always have to be, I'm literally getting attacked and I have to survive the attack. Getting away can be considered a method of protection, right? But yes. I've heard of this. Some people shift into different animals. Yes, correct. It's popular within shamanism. All right. Let's get back to the lesson here. Okay, so we left off with discussing the different types of attacks. I think we left off with bindings, how bindings can be considered negative when they're on you, rather than like, oh, I want to bind my sister's ex-boyfriend or my sister's boyfriend because he's abusing her or something like that. I'm going to skip that part. But I guess this is a good thing to talk about. So I just mentioned in my servitor fetish item, it's hollowed out, right? There's an internal charge that allows for a spirit to habitate within the vessel, and within that, surrounding that internal charge is the crystal. There are items that are conducive to the spirit's nature, right? To keep the spirit's energies in harmony and not getting all out of control. We can take that on a micro level and macro that for your life. In the sense of, you want the space around you to be conducive, right, to protection. to peace, to blessings, to, you know, stress, care, and worry free. You don't want a space conducive to getting attacked, right? You don't want a space conducive to people sending negative things your way. And so, and that's another reason why I recommend doing things weekly rather than monthly or, you know, bi-monthly or whatever, doing it weekly. But making sure your space is clean, both spiritually, both energetically, and physically, right? And space doesn't always have to mean your whole home, although that is, you know, a good practice. But the space in which you do magical work, right, should be clean, and more so spiritually, but spiritually and physically, it should be clean. So becoming proficient with some sort of banishing ritual, and it doesn't have to be the LBRP. Yes, that's the most popular, but it doesn't have to be that. I prefer the Adjuration of Metatron. I have a whole video on it, even outlining how to do it, down to the words that you have to say when performing the ritual. So check that out if you're interested in that. But it can be any sort of banishing ritual, you know, Star Ruby, Star Sapphire, whatever, to banish negative energies in your space. And then, right, there's another step to banishing, right? A lot of people just banish and that's it, right? They push the negative energy out and that's it. But now you have empty space. And if you don't fill that space with something, that negative energy could come right back, or other energies could fill that space. You want to invite benefic energies into your space, right? It's not just enough to banish them. Banishing them is great. You want to banish them. But once they're banished, you want to bring in a benefic energy, right? I do the Adjuration of Metatron, which serves both to banish and also to bring in positive energies, right? It calls on Metatron, and I call it his gang, but it's really just different aspects of him. It's really just Metatron under different titles and names. Thank you for all of the gifts, guys. I appreciate that. And they cleanse the space, and then they bring in positive benefic energies in order to make it conducive to positivity, peace, you know, and not darkness and muck and drab. So yeah, clean space, right? Become proficient with banishing and cleansing and invoking a benefic sort of an energy. All right, I think we're basically at the end here. We already talked about psychic vampires. Discuss the various psychic vampires, dreamwalking. Okay, I guess I could talk about that. We already talked about defense, the 12D shield, auric cleansing, closing the auric holes and gaps, amulets, mojo hands, gree bags. Those are basically amulets, talismans from like a hoodoo perspective. All right, let's. Well, I don't know how important this is. Discuss the various types, scanning, implants, dreamwalking, emotional attacks, mental attacks, and drain. I mean, we kind of already did talk about that. And we already talked about the 12D shield. We talked about witch bottles. We literally just got done talking about the LBRP and the Adjuration of Metatron. So yeah, I think we covered everything. I think we covered everything in the 45 minutes. In about 45 minutes, we covered everything. Nice. Excellent. All right. Before we move into the next lecture, I guess, I don't know. I've got a whole notebook of notes here for different topics. Another thing we could talk about is initiation, the devil and witchcraft, the difference, the different types of magic circles that are out there. What's this? Oh, this is initiation. We can talk about that. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being here. All right, let's see what you guys are talking about. Is there a way to make a servitor that can be in the afterlife with you? Um, I am not sure. I've never heard of that. That doesn't mean it's not possible. I mean, I guess you can make a servitor and tether it to yourself, but I feel like when you would die, if it's tethered to you, it would die. You would have to give it its own separate life force, something to keep it going when you're not present. But then if you passed on too soon, it could be a really weak servitor. Um, there's a lot of implications here, but I've never heard of it, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Like a way to set it up so it can be with you in the afterlife somehow. Yeah, I've never heard of that. But again, it doesn't mean it's not possible. Howdy, have you ever evoked or invoked any lesser key entity? If you mean the Goetia, yes, I've worked with quite a few spirits from the Goetia. Well, quite a few out of 72, 5 or 6, not like 20. Can you attach a servitor to an item that doesn't have a hollow out in the vessel? I mean, you can, but I don't find that effective, right? I don't find that effective at all. It's better to use the more effective methodology is the way that I'll word that. I don't want to offend anyone who comes from different systems and traditions. So we'll say that the more it's better to use an effective method. Is there a way to create a thought form or servitor that can already answer that? Do you practice with holistic medicine? No, I'm not. I'm not a doctor or anything. I wear a star ruby on my right hand ring finger. Interesting. Are you into thelema or anything? What is a good book site for magical readings? Um, you, you mean like reading books, right? Not like getting a reading done. You mean like books? Miskatonic Books is probably the best site. And I mean, okay. I only like them because they do a lot of the underground publishers. I try to stay away from recommending at least too much the more mainstream publishers like Llewellyn or Wiser or something like that. Excuse me. I try to give the lesser known publishers, and by lesser known, I mean to the greater community. They're known by me and you guys and stuff like that. But to the greater community, I think they're not really that well known. So those are the ones that I like to promote are the lesser knowns. And then also the information from the lesser knowns are usually a lot better. They're usually more because they don't have requirements, right? Like I feel like Llewellyn and Wiser have to cater to a certain crowd. And so they have, they make their authors, put certain things in the books just to appease a certain demographic. And of course to get sales, right? Of course, the new age stuff gets sales. So, without that, we wouldn't have a Llewellyn, we wouldn't have a Wiser. So, but Miskatonic Books is the one that I like. And then from there, you'll learn all the crazy publishers. Like, they even have a list of the publishers. Like, you don't even have to just randomly search through books or search through categories. You can just go to, like, publishers, and it'll list out all the publishers that they have. And then you can just click on whichever one sounds interesting and just see what books from that publisher Miskatonic offers. And then you can visit the publisher's website, see the other books that they have. And within a few days, you'll have learned about a dozen new publishers, dozens of authors you've never heard of, dozens of books that you probably would have never heard of without, finding this website. So yeah. Is there a way to create a servitor thought form to be with you? Okay, well, you keep asking the same. I've answered that question already. Does the item always have to be hollowed out? I've already answered this question. Howdy, have you ever evoked or invoked? I've already answered that. What's a good website for finding books to read for free? For free, you can use there's obviously like sacredtext.com. There's that Russian site BiblioRR or something. There's Grimoire CZ, which is probably the better one in my opinion. But that's because the books on there are more historical. Not that there's no modern books on there, but it's pretty historical, and I'm into those books. I would prefer the older books than the newer books. So like if you gave me a choice to read a book on necromancy from the 1300s or read a book on necromancy from 2012, I'd probably pick the 1300s. But Grimoire CZ is a good one. I'm trying to think of others because I normally don't go to websites to like what I do if I'm looking for a PDF is if it's not on any of those websites, I just Google it. I'll just Google the title plus PDF. And then someone would have uploaded it somewhere and I'll just download it. Wizard Forums has a book section like where you can just browse and find books that they upload as well as request books. You can request and then someone will go out and find it and bring it over to the site or buy it and upload it. Can a thought form be turned into a servitor? Yes. Will it be a bit stronger than a regular servitor? No, not at the jump. You gotta train it. What ritual do you recommend other than Grimorium Verum ways? Ritual to do what? What do you mean? Ritual is very vague, very broad. Can you attach the servitor to the spirit of yourself so then it's automatically a part of your spirit, which can't technically die? Not that I've never heard of anything like that. So that's something that you'd have to experiment on yourself. I've never heard of anything like that. For evoking or working with any of the 72 demons. Well, I mean, I don't work in the Grimorium Verum way, so I wouldn't tell you to work that way. I would tell you to work in the way of the Grimoires, but not necessarily the Grimorium Verum way. The only other way I would recommend working with the spirits of the Goetia or any Grimoire spirit is in the way of like the ATRs or the ADRs. So like petitioning them, venerating them, and petitioning them and asking them for favors, and then in return you give them offerings. Usually those offerings are front loaded. Those are the only two ways me personally would approve of, which may mean nothing, of working with those types of spirits. Can you attach? I just answered that question. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. All right. I'm debating on whether or not it's because this one took me 45 minutes, and if I start another lecture, because I was going to go off at 10:30, so in a half hour. If I start another lecture, that could take us over. And I can't do that tonight. I cannot go over. Yeah, this is like several pages. This is not gonna. All right, well, we did a nice little lesson, a nice little 45-minute lecture. We can stick with the Q&A for the next 30 minutes or whatever. And then we can get out of here. So if you guys were here for the lecture, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot. I think I will put this lecture up on YouTube. It's going to suck though because it's going to be in portrait mode, so it's not going to look good. Um, I'm sorry, but yeah, we will. I think we'll upload this to YouTube, or at least the first 45 minutes. I wanted to move into. Thank you for the info. You're welcome. You're welcome. I wanted to move into another lecture, um, but I let the time get away from me, and now I don't have time. I doubt I'd be able to, without skipping things, I doubt I'd be able to rush through this in 30 minutes. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to get through this, but you're welcome. You're welcome for the information. Thank you guys for being here. But yeah, I wanted to talk about occult initiation. That's what I was going to lecture on next because we don't really see that a lot anymore in today's world. Not a lot of people are getting initiated into occult practices outside of the ones that strictly require it. And the only ones that strictly require it are the ones that have any sort of like hierarchy or structure. The loose ones don't seem to require it, and so people aren't going through it, and then therefore it loses its importance, as it seems to have done. And people don't even understand what it's actually for, why it's necessary. In many cases, not in all cases, you certainly don't need to. You certainly don't need initiation to practice like general magic. You don't need it, but being initiated can help. Going through an initiatic process, right? Having the access to information and knowledge that you can validate, number one, but that very few people have access to, can propel your practice to just like the ATRs, exactly. Can propel your practice to new heights. It's a lost art, or a lost practice. What is heaven, and if it is real, do you stay, and can you choose, or is it multi-dimensional act stuff? Well, I'm a hermeticist, so yes, heaven is a place that you would stay. But heaven, well, I probably shouldn't have answered because heaven's not a place. Being a classical hermeticist, we agree with theosis, which is a becoming of God, if that makes sense. Without going too deep into Hermetic soteriology, I guess, if there is no soteriology in, well, I guess eschatology, yeah, Hermetic eschatology. Without going too deep into that, essentially, we believe that if you know how to find your way back through the path of return, and you ascend through the spheres, you can reunite with God through a process known as, in Greek, as theosis, right? Which is it's a merging with and a becoming of one with God, right? So you can't leave that, right? Once you're there, you're there. So yes, I certainly do believe that's real. And can you choose, or is it multi-dimensional act stuff? Well, can you choose to go to heaven or not? Yes, you can certainly choose to not go to heaven. You just don't. I mean, in my paradigm, you would just not ascend. Or is it multi-dimensional? No, it's not multi-dimensional. Can a servitor be attached to your body rather than an object? Your body, yes. I've heard it being attached to your body, but the body dies. So the body dies. Good questions. But yeah, initiation seems to be a lost art. So I wanted to, or I wanted. Maybe we'll do it. No, tomorrow's Tuesday. I keep thinking it's Sunday because I was off today and forgot about the holiday. Tomorrow's Tuesday, so Tuesday we'll be with Quinn. So we can't talk about this unless I go live like early, which I can't. So maybe Wednesday or Thursday we can, or can't be Thursday. Either Wednesday or Friday or something. We could discuss it deeper. Yeah, I think it's important, and I think we need to discuss it. What books can you recommend for continued research on Lord Lucifer? Well, I don't venerate or worship Lucifer or anything like that, so I'm not the best person to ask on that. Off the top of my head, Lucifer Princeps, um, The Red King, Lucifer Princeps by, I want to say Peter Gray, um, but that could be wrong. But I feel like it is Peter Gray. The Red King by Mark Allen Smith. Um, yeah, I don't work with Lucifer or do anything with Lucifer, so I'm not the best person to ask on that. Those are the only two that I can think of off the top of my head. Um, I don't think I have any other. I know I don't have any physical books on Lucifer. I don't believe. That's Lilith. No, I don't have any physical books on Lucifer. But PDFs. Let me see my Google Drive. All right. So I've got Lucifer and the Hidden Demons. Who's this by? By Theodore Rose. I've never read this, so um, Lucifer and the Hidden Demons, a practical grimoire from the Order of Unveiled Faces. I've never read this, so but it seems to present a really interesting hierarchy of spirits and working with them. It does look like it'll be from a sort of grimoire sort of a methodology, or I mean, maybe not methodology, but more of the hierarchy, the way it's set up. Like it has the four demon kings: Lucifer, Leviathan, Shaitan, and Belial, and then the eight dukes of Lucifer: Ashtareth, Asmodee, Oriens, Eraton, Magoth, Beelzebub, Payman, and Mammon, and then the demon servants under them, and then more and more and more and more. So yeah. Let's see what else. What's this? I don't know what this is. Hold on. Open with. Let's see what this is. All right. Oh, that's Freemost and Klepoth. Okay, never mind. That's not Lucifer. I've got Phosphorus by Michael Ford, but this is more of an article, more than a book. It's only 7 pages, but it's Phosphorus, the Shadowing Forth of Lucifer. I think that's all I might have. There's the Red King. I think that's all I might have on Lucifer specifically. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I have on Lucifer specifically. So, sorry, I'm not that much help when it comes to Lucifer. Thank you. You're welcome. I have that book actually. Oh, nice. Which one? Which one do you have? The Red King or the what was this one called? Lucifer and the Hidden Demons? Lucifer and the Hidden Demons? I gotta plug in my phone. There we go. You said you don't deal with him. I don't. That's why I'm not the best person to ask about this topic, because I don't deal with Lucifer. The Theodore Rose book. Oh, okay. Thanks so much for checking. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, sorry I couldn't be of more help. I'm not that big into Lucifer. But yeah, I think Wednesday we can dive deep into the initiation talk. I think that'll be beneficial for a lot of people. Understanding what it actually is, and that it's not about just like gaining psychic powers or a status or anything, but it's an entrance into, I guess what you could call like the lesser mysteries. It's integral spiritual development, right? In a structured way, not in some loose, random, just do whatever I want type of way, but in a very structured way. No different than, traditional school. There are some schools that let you just do whatever, but traditional schooling to get a degree or whatever, right? There's structured learning and things that you have to do to get to the next stage. It's not just, prove to me that you can count, and then if you can count, then no, you have to be able to like demonstrate things and show your work and stuff like that. And this is the same with the initiatic experience. It's not about gaining psychic powers or learning how to commune with your spirit guides or the secrets of the universe or anything, which is one of the best ways. There's like a few ways, but one of the best ways to determine if a group is like BS or not is if they start promising you abilities and powers if you go through their initiation and you initiate into their group, into their order. That's bullshit, right? That's bullshit. The only thing that they can grant you that another group may not be able to is access to their spirits, right? If that group works with so for example, E.A. Coetting, I forget the name of the group he used to be part of. I can't even remember. I don't know, but he used to be part of some group back in the day, and back before he started Become a Living God and all that. So this is like over 10 years ago because he started that in 2012. But back in the day, he wrote a book called Kingdoms of Flame. All the spirits in Kingdoms of Flame are egregores. They're all manufactured spirits. Made up isn't the best way to say it. Manufactured is the best way. They are manufactured spirits. And they're manufactured by the group that he was part of. Actually, let me see, because I have Kingdoms of Flame. Where is it? All right, I thought I had Kingdoms of Flame. Maybe I don't have Kingdoms of Flame. I could have sworn I had it. Is this it right here? No, that's Works of Darkness. Where's... Okay. Here we go. I don't know why I was under a different... All right, let me scroll through this really quick. Ordo Ascensum Aeternalis was the name of his group. Ordo Ascensum Aeternalis was the group that E.A. Koetting was in. And they manufactured the spirits, right? And so since they created those spirits, no one outside of that group until they wrote this book, or until he wrote this book, and I'm sure other people from his order and stuff assisted, but hold on. There we go. They were the only ones that would have known the names of these spirits and the sigils of these spirits, meaning they were the only people who would have been able to contact these spirits. So if I wanted to ever get in touch with, I'm trying to think of one of the spirits from the book without looking. I think Lady Locke was supposed to be Lady Luck. Lady Locke is one of the spirits that is named in the text. If you wanted to get in touch with that spirit specifically, you'd have to go through the group because you would not know its name, its sigil, anything like that. So I would definitely love to learn more about initiation. Yeah, probably Wednesday we'll do it. What's a Baphomet and are there millions? No. Baphomet is, the way you're probably describing it, or the way you're probably meaning, Baphomet is the goat of Mendes, right? It's that goat with the crossed legs, sometimes doing the as above so below, with the hermaphroditic body parts, right? It looks male because it has the shaft, and then of course it looks female because it has the top, might be, in front of an upside down pentagram, or, some sort of a demonic thing. It supposedly was worshipped by the Knights Templar, but there's no real evidence of that. The only evidence we have is a journal of one of the judges that tried the Knights Templar during their trials and stuff like that. And it was mentioned about this head, this goat head, that they would talk to, right? And it would give them like oracles and prophecies and stuff like that, right? Like the talking heads that we've talked about before. Sorry, not talking heads, the talking skulls that we've talked about before. Sort of like that. But that most historians don't accept, because number one, it's coming from a biased source. It's coming from someone who was judging these people and was, of course, always going to judge them in the wrong. And number two, this is the only case that they have of this. No one else who was tried mentioned the goat head. No one else talked about it. No one else knew what that was about. And so most scholars seem to think that it was one of those things that was given under duress, right? Under the threat of torture or under actual torture. Like during the witch trials and stuff like that, where a lot of people confessed simply to stop the torture, not because they were actually witches. So a lot of historians think, of course, it could be incorrect, and they really could have had a goat head that was severed and was talking to them and giving them oracles, but chances are that's not true. But yeah, that's who Baphomet is. There's a really good book by I forget her name at the moment. Let me find it. Baphomet Unveiled, um, that you might be interested in. Sorry, I said Baphomet Unveiled. It's Baphomet Revealed, by Heather Lynn, PhD. This is the second book by her that I have. I have her other book about um, like esotericism and like conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Um, Baphomet Revealed: Mysteries and Magic of the Sacred Icon. It's a pretty excellent text. So and just the way I like it, she cites her sources. You really can't go more than a paragraph without her saying something and then citing her source. Like, it's almost to the point where it's kind of like annoying. Like, you can wait to the end of the chapter to give all, like, just do the little number thing, right? The little number at the when you say something, and then at the end of the chapter or at the end of the book, we can go and look. But she cites stuff right in the thing. Like, she'll go, oh, Baphomet was, worshipped as a, I don't know, a fish god, back in 200, BCE. And we know this because John so and so said in his seminal work in 1975 on the mysteries of the fish people, on page 21, and like, it cites it right in the quote, which is pretty cool. What's a egregore or manufactured? Well, in egregore is manufactured. Manufactured just means exactly what it means in the regular world. It's made up, or not made up, but like it's not naturally occurring. It was created. It's not natural. It's not like stones and rocks or air or trees, right? That are natural. It was made by a human. Like, this notebook was this. This is not naturally occurring in nature. This was made. A egregore is a spirit that does not exist naturally in nature. It is created, and to be an egregore specifically, you have to be created by a group, or created for the use of a group, rather than one person. Hey, what's up, Wild Horse? How are you? Happy Memorial Day if you celebrate. Welcome. What's a Jezebel spirit? Not anything real. That's that's a conspiracy. That's a Christian conspiracy thing for promiscuous female spirits. If there ever was a Jezebel spirit, and I'm not saying that this is, but if I were to give an answer to your question, like the answer that you're kind of looking for, it would be like Lilith, or something like one of the Pombergiras. But there is no Jezebel spirit. That's a conspiracy. Hi, hey Forrest, what's up? What's up? All right, we got about 6 minutes left, guys, and I'm getting off here at 10:30. I got some things to do before I hit the hay. I'm confused about all the paradigms in a cult. What's actually true? Nothing. What do you mean? What's actually true? Nothing. Like, are you saying what's actually true? Question mark, and then saying nothing? Question mark. Because I don't know what's actually true. Nothing. But in that way, what's actually true? The issue, in my opinion, is that most of the opinions that are out there in occultism are not grounded in some sort of theological foundation, right? And I believe in order for something to be true, there has to be some sort of a theological foundation behind it, or else how can you give a justifiable account for morals and ethics, right? without it being rooted in my opinion. I've not come across any atheistic justification for why I should be a good person other than, well, you just should be a good person. Okay, well, then what's good? Well, doing this. Okay, but that's your version of good. What if that guy over there says it's not good? Now what? Like, who's good is right? So, in my opinion, only the gods, can determine that, or else we would end up in infinite regress, where it's just okay, well then how do you know that? And then you give me an answer. Okay, well then how do you know that? Right? It'll just be an infinite going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I think that's the problem with a lot of those. I'm sorry to say it, but chaosophic. Once chaos magic got introduced into things started going downhill from there. Not that chaos magic isn't useful, not that it can't be a wonderful system, it can't be a beautiful addition to your system or whatever. But when you start believing everything and just allowing anything and doing everything, it degrades actual foundationalism, because it says that you don't need that foundation. And you might not need that specific foundation, but you need a similar foundation, a foundation rooted in some sort of a higher, some sort of a first cause. And that first cause is conscious, right? It's not the Big Bang. There's some sort of first cause that is conscious that allows for all of this. And from there, you build on that. And that's how you get to what's true. Because otherwise, you'll be in an infinite regress. And nothing is true at that point, because you're always asking, okay, but then how do you know that? Okay, but then how do you know that? Okay, but then how do you know that? How do you know that? What's your justification for that? What's your justification for that? What's your justification for that? And at some point, it should stop. I can't say it has to stop. I'm not God, but it should stop. So that's how I would answer that. Is there a way for a person to unintentionally interact with an egregore of a fictional character? Unintentionally? Sure. Can you make a servitor based off a character, same name and appearance, without interacting with the egregore of it that probably exists astrally? I don't think so. I think once you tap into the name and the appearance and all that, you open the doorway for that spirit to take notice, and interaction is probably going to come. So what is a book you would recommend for someone attacked by curses? Blackthorn's Protection Magic, by Amy Blackthorne. Jason Miller's Protection and Reversal Magic. Dion Fortune's Psychic Self-Defense. Hell, even Silver Ravenwolf Silver Spells for Protection. There's a bunch out there. The Witch's Shield by that cop. I forget their name at the moment. Rhiannon something or something like that. It's some like Celtic name. But they're a cop, and they have like a book on magic. Called The Witch's Shield. No, I'm sorry, I'm lying. The Witch's Shield is by Chris Penskak, right? Or is it by that cop? Because he's a cop, so shield, play on words, I don't know. But The Witch's Shield, no matter who it's by. So yeah. If I interact with that egregore and want specific stuff with it and treat it as a servitor, what will happen then? I have no idea. Try it. Experiment. That's the best way to get these types of questions answered, is to experiment. Back on the topic of initiation, I fear for the baby witches that are getting into the craft as a what? As a TR. What is that? But yes, I do fear for the baby witches, because they have no idea, and they've been coached and taught by people who are probably not initiated into any sort of, and I don't want to be, but like legitimate system, and so they're learning from people who don't know really what they're talking about. And then, of course, like most people, when you're challenged, if you don't know how to defend against that challenge, you lash out, you act out, and you start to, you know, do things out of anger and spite, and just makes you look ridiculous. And then it makes the community look ridiculous. So, but all right, guys, it is 10:30. At least on my phone. On my PC, it says 10:27, but the PC is from China. Like I bought it directly out of China. So I'm not going to trust that. I'm going to trust my American-made or American-sponsored Samsung phone. Yes, I know Samsung is an Asian company, but sponsored by an American company, whereas Mini Forum, none of you have ever heard of that because it's literally a Chinese company that I got in China. So I'm going to trust Samsung over Mini Forum. So I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all for hanging out. For those of you who were here for the lecture for the first 45 minutes, thank you. It's going to be in portrait mode, so it's going to suck, but I'm going to put it up on YouTube in the next couple days. But again, I warn you, it'll be in portrait mode because I went live here instead of from my desktop. So it's going to suck, but we do what we can. And then for those of you who stuck around afterwards or who just came in, you know, over the last 45 minutes, thank you. It was good discussion, good conversation, good questions. I hope Wednesday or Friday, hopefully Wednesday, but if not Wednesday, then Friday, unless Thursday is canceled. Wednesday or Friday, we will get into initiation. We'll talk about initiation from an occult perspective, what it really is, what it's, you know, its actual usage, its actual importance, right? Not these new age, you know, modern day definitions, but definitions from classical times when initiation was important and was used. So yeah, if you're interested in that, come back during then. No, thank you, Wild Horse. Thank you. I appreciate you. Good night, Nugon. Have a good one. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you all. I hope you had a fantastic Memorial Day. I was going to say weekend. Well, I guess, yeah. I hope your weekend was good and your Memorial Day was good. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow when I go live with Quinn for the continuation of our Grimoire reading on the Picatrix. So thank you all, and I'll catch you all in the next one. As always, seek the mysteries. Peace.